Municipal Advisory Council. This is an advisory council which supports the Board of Supervisors, District 1. And we'll start off with a roll call and then go to our Pledge of Allegiance.
All right. Thomas Lane.
Good.
George Cleveland.
Here.
Sue Boudreau.
Excused.
Jim Herman.
Here.
Dr. Linda McLean.
Excused.
Nikki Norris.
Here.
Tom Owens.
Here.
Kelly Rosenthal Winston.
Not here.
She's excused.
You.
Health issues.
Okay. And that concludes the roll call.
Okay. And maybe someone could lead. I'll be happy to lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
Behind you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
and to the
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Wow. I've never heard that before on the call.
So, Ronnie, Treasurer's Report?
Yes, so we're still sitting at 3,000 for the year.
Okay, that should cover our spa day.
You got the reservation, Sam?
Yes.
So, we do have the January meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to read through them and comments?
I have one correction. It was under, when I was mentioning Ramon Murray getting the Citizen of the Year award. That was from the Chamber of Commerce, not going to be announced at the Earth Day. It happened at the installation dinner. Just that.
So
and congratulations to Ramon.
Move the January 2024 minutes as corrected. Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. There we go. So we can go on to our regularly scheduled items. So we'll start off with District 1 County Update. Ronnie?
Yes. So I have a few items to update you all on, starting with the Clark Road. We had a productive meeting with Larry Shane, our office, and Public Works. And now we're working on a meeting with the Park District and with the Wildcat Canyon School. We'll be working on an event with law enforcement and our office that will be held here in Sobrante and slated for sometime next month. So that should be a fun outing for everyone in the community. A bit on the Air District, the Air District reached settlement with Chevron and Martinez, and they withdrew their lawsuits with the district. And so, Brother Joanne, I will be glad to talk further if there are any additional questions in regards to that settlement. There's been a big press release that was released early this morning, and there's a bit more information on our specific homepage if you want more information on that. Let's see what else we have. The county has voted to fund a study for Richmond paramedics to be included on fire engines, and currently Richmond only have EMTs on the fire engines, and so the board has officially voted to fund a study for that. Finally, we're currently interviewing to fill the alternate space for alternate seat for this MAC. And so if you're interested, you can always reach out to me directly, or we have some information on our homepage.
Any update on the noise ordinance?
Yes, let me jump to that. Yes, and so I did reach out to John Kopchick, the director for DCD, in regards to the noise ordinance. And so the timeline for launching step 1 was slated for this last month. Obviously, that hadn't happened. And so the next steps will be to propose a companion ordinance with the Board of Supervisors, so that we can kind of be it can be a catch-all in regards to commercial, what do I have here? What was the name for it? A temporary event ordinance. And so where DCD is planning to amend that to also include smaller gatherings. And so we think that would be a better chance to actually get some board support. So I don't have a date just yet, but I did receive a tentative timeline of about 3 to 6 weeks from the 26th of last month. And so that puts us at early March to get something going in regards to that was first second line, achieving a working group for El Sobrante.
Would it be possible to get something in writing so we could read it and see what they're proposing?
Yeah, I think I reached out to the director to see if we can have something in writing.
That would be great because there are a lot of community members who are interested in that, and if they could put their eyes on something, they'd be happy.
Yeah. That concludes my
Any questions for Ronnie from council? Questions from the floor?
Anybody on the Zoom? Anybody on the Zoom call? Any questions for Mr. Mills's report?
Okay. So we'll move to our next item. The agenda has the Fire Protection District up next, but Lieutenant Rodriguez from the Sheriff's Department has some time constraints, so I'm wondering if it's okay.
100%.
All right, great. Why don't you go ahead, Lieutenant Rodriguez?
You guys. Is there a recommended spot? There you go. Thank you. Thank you guys. For those of you new in the room, Mark Rodriguez currently assigned as the station house commander for Bay Station. I'll start off just going over the monthly reports and then we'll get into some specific incidents. For the month of January, Sheriff's Office fielded 736 calls for service in El Sobrante. Of those calls for service, we generated 53 reports. For select crime trends, we're turning upward, and I'll touch on as to why. But for November, we had 15 reports. December was 15, and for the month of January, it was 17. The biggest jump there was commercial burglaries, and the majority of which were in the 3900 block of San Pablo Dam Road, or 3700 block of San Pablo Dam Road. With those burglaries, some of them were borderline just vandalisms, to where they were in some instances they were using rocks to break into the windows, accessing some of the businesses, and then the items that were being taken. While they had value, it wasn't significant value, and actual items of significant value were actually being left behind. So with that being said, it leads us to believe that it was more of a chance and happenstance that it was an actual targeted burglary as far as going in there and getting that stuff out. Other things that we had as far as current events in January, middle of January, we had our shift change. As part of that shift change, we had folks transferring to the patrol division. So we currently have 21 deputies in the patrol division field training program. That program will run anywhere from 4 to 6 months. Once they complete the training, they'll be assigned to various locations throughout the county. One of them being Bay Station. We happen to have field training officers assigned to Bay Station. We have several, so we'll see a lot of trainees getting training out here on the West End, and then we'll probably with some of those out of that group of 21 as well. Other things that you may have seen in the news, or if you happen to be driving by, we had yesterday morning we had a suspicious death. Yesterday morning, I believe. Yesterday morning, we got a report of what came out initially as a vehicle versus pedestrian. Possibly it came out as a welfare check. It was here on Avian, I believe in front of 425 Avian. It's a vacant building currently, but it's right at the Y where it splits. Report of a subject down, and when we got there, Due to the close proximity to the roadway, the extent of the initial injuries, we believe, hey, possibly going to be a vehicle versus pedestrian. We contacted CHP to come out. They came out. We conducted an investigation as though that was the case. Upon further investigation, we were able to determine it was not a vehicle versus pedestrian. And I actually spoke with investigations today. Almost 99% show that it's going to be a non-criminal death. The injuries are consistent with falling. That was the pass down I got today. So we had prior contacts with the deceased and similar incidents to where they had fallen. The injuries were consistent with that. So that's kind of where we're at. So if you happen to see that, or if you have any inquiries or things like that, that's where we're at with that. Other significant events just on the west end. We did have a pretty significant theft from the Phillips 66 refinery. Someone trespassed on the property. They had left copper wiring out in the open. That was slated to be installed for solar panels on the east side of 80 there. About $100,000 worth of copper wire, I believe, was stolen. We do have a lead in that. And there was about $100,000 worth of damage done in order to execute that theft as well. So that's one of the ones that's significant. And then obviously just based on the nature of the installation, it's a concern as well as far as the security goes. Tonight, I'd like to introduce a couple of my partners. We have Sergeant Scanlon. He's a supervisor out of Bay Station. He's currently assigned to the other side of the week. However, he regularly fills in when we have supervisors away at training or on days off. He'll be on this side of the week. He's very familiar with the west end of the county, so we're happy to have him back out here. He was out on the east end previously. Deputy Sabella, he's here with us tonight. He's been out working out of Bay Station for about 4 years now. The majority of the time he's working out of North Richmond and El Sobrante, as the two cover each other. And then also have Deputy Ducchiaro, same thing. He's normally in El Sobrante as North Richmond as well. So, any questions for me at this time?
Questions?
Well, I don't have a question. I just want to thank the sheriff department for their quick response on this abandoned boat that was on San Pablo Dam Road, accumulating all kinds of junk and stuff, and it's gone. And we appreciate it. Thank you.
No worries. I believe that our community service officer came out Monday and took care of that. I did see that in past time, so I'm glad we were able to get that news. The boats and RVs can be a little bit challenging for several reasons. One is the resources needed to actually get them off the roadway, and then the other is a lot of times those things have no value to the towing company. So in some cases it actually costs them to be able to try and one, move it, and then get the plane over too. So glad we were able to get it done quickly.
Questions from the floor or online for Lieutenant Rodriguez?
Question, Chris? Yeah, there's well, you know what the sinkhole is on this by Honda and Valley View, kind of in between the two there on the northern side of the San Pablo Dam Road. Anyway, if you between those two streets there, on one side is the where the road fell in, but across from that, there's a lot of wires that are hanging down. And I don't know if that's who exactly to report that to, but it'd be kind of nice, maybe you could take a look at it and see what to deal with those wires that are hanging down to it. I don't know if they're phone lines or power lines or what, but it just feels weird to walk by and see dangling wires.
Yeah, we could hear. I'll sort of call.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure where it is in there, but if you go by and look up and it's along the line, it's fine a bit. Okay. Oh, one other thing. On the Avila Road, just to the north of the creek, there's a lot of times that people dumping debris from construction and so forth. And there's some vehicles that relate to construction there sometimes, and recently there's been a truck with a trailer and a Hobie cat on it. And now there's a couple of Hobie cat treads dumped beside the road. And it seems to be pretty obvious it's from the Hobie cat that's right next to it, you know. And so I've taken pictures with the photos of it and so forth. I actually called it into the sheriff's the other day, but I didn't know to talk about the license plates I'm gonna do for it, but it would be helpful. I could give you those. I don't know if it would really help because it might be something you can't act on, but at least you can identify maybe who the person is who's connected to the
Yeah, any information you have would be helpful. One of the things that I'll also want you guys to do is there's a mobile citizen app. In terms of actually getting this stuff moved along that helps us out. It's the same app that we use a lot of the times. The mobile citizen app will help us with illegal dumping. That's another thing that has been pretty prevalent. So yeah, please call that in because you know what you don't know, right? So if you guys can put us in the right direction, we can respond out there. If it's a actual hazard as far as being in the roadway, normally we'll be able to get public works out to kind of mitigate it, depending on you know the hazard that it poses. If not, what happens is it gets put on a rotational list, and as they're making the rounds, they're kind of picking stuff up. One area that continues to be an issue is off of out past Castro Ranch Road. Yeah, and I've been working with one of the, and I know Supervisor Joy's office has been working with them as well. They've been on it. Some instances, they're the best detectives as far as pointing us in the right direction and giving us the lead. So yeah, if you guys see that stuff, please call it in. Use the mobile citizen app. That stuff is also being tracked by the county, and they're tracking the number of instances, locations, and then obviously the costs associated with it. But there is an actual map that all that stuff is being followed up on.
And I did send it in, but it says have the license plate numbers and all of the vehicle, but it seems completely related to it. That's why I wanted to talk to you.
Yeah, please call us. Absolutely. Call us every time. Thank you.
Okay. One more in the back. Yeah, I was just wondering if your officers have any type of I submitted some to your liaison, some California noise ordinance language.
Yes, I believe Deputy Faison is who you submitted that stuff to. You and I, we can talk and we'll go over the noise ordinance, and then Ronnie gave us an update as far as some of the meetings that are going to take place with code enforcement as well going forward. So I do appreciate you submitting that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I'll talk with you after.
Okay, thank you.
Up to speed on that.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Other questions for Lieutenant Rodriguez? Thank you so much for your presentation and welcome.
Thank you. Yeah. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we can have our fire protection district update.
Good evening.
Okay.
It's nice to be here in person. Long Gage, thank you guys. Thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
My name's Long Gage. I'm Assistant Fire Chief with Contra Costa Fire. Really appreciate the opportunity to come see you tonight. We're going to actually have 3 parts. We've got 3 acts to our presentation tonight. So it's Valentine's Day, so we thought we'd spruce it up for you guys. So I'm going to kick things off and just go through some initiatives and things that are going on at the fire district. I'm just going to hand it off to Chief Bozo to provide some more detailed information about a structure fire with rescue that we responded to just about a week and a half ago. Andy?
On February 3rd.
Yeah, February 3rd. And then we'll turn it over to Michelle, who I think is on Zoom, to be able to provide the updates on our wildland resilience programs, fuels management, that type of thing. So one of the most important things that we do to prepare for emergencies is training. So our training division has been hard at work. Our 60th Fire Academy is 5 weeks into their 19-week Fire Academy. Everything is going well. They've got 14 weeks to go, and we're hoping to see all of our recruit firefighters make it through training and join us in our fire stations throughout the county. We are launching an initiative on human performance. So we reached out to the Fire Department of New York. They sent out an instructor team to train 20 of our firefighters at Con Fire on how to perform better under stress. And it's a really great program that acknowledges, you know, the natural stress reactions that we all have and the ability for us to think clearly and act effectively in emergencies. We basically got firefighters from our department from 20 years on the job to 2 years on the job. And I think it's gonna be really great to see that program come to fruition and provide that type of training so we can provide even better service to the public. Our emergency medical services division is very engaged in preparing for the ambulance contract. So we'll be bidding for the 911 ambulance contract here in Contra Costa County. We've been providing that service for about 10 years now, if you can believe that, in a public-private partnership with AMR. So we are providing our response to the request for proposal, and we hope to continue to oversee the 911 ambulance program here in the county. Providing ambulance service is a challenging thing to do through coronavirus, through a lot of different changes in the emergency medical services system. I think we have one of the most cutting edge systems in the state. We provide a very high level of service, but we're challenged. The number of paramedics that are available in the job market is really down. So we've actually developed systems to where we're doing a better job triaging 911 calls and trying to assign the proper level of medical training to those calls. Overall, the program's pretty successful. And what it does is it allows us to send EMT basics on an ambulance to appropriate type calls. And what that does is it helps keep our paramedic staffed ambulances available for true emergencies. We're also backing those BLS ambulances up with our paramedics that are on the engine companies. So every engine rescue truck company within Contra Costa County Fire provides a first response paramedic assigned to all those resources, which is proving to be very valuable in an environment where there aren't enough paramedic staffed ambulances available. So we're able to provide that quick first response, provide stabilization for the patient if we have any delay in ambulance transport. We've also been very successful in implementing those BLS ambulances to provide transport for psychiatric emergencies, which, believe it or not, is like over 25% of our 911 calls have to do with psychological emergencies. And many times those patients need to be transferred to the psychiatric emergency room in Martinez. Very busy facility. And we end up committing our ambulances for almost up to an hour to 2 hours just to be able to transfer patients to their staff. So I'm really glad that Con Fire is engaged in making sure that the 911 ambulance service provides the best service we can countywide. We provide that service to 85% of the county. So the entirety of the Contra Costa County Fire District, all of West County, is provided ambulance service under the public-private partnership that we provide with AMR. Our special operations, we deploy 2 fireboats throughout our system. So a fireboat in Pittsburgh and a fireboat in Bethel Island. We've added 10 new boat operators to that program that allows us to have better coverage, better response capability to those boats. We look in the future to expanding our boat. We will likely add a boat in the Bethel Island, in the Discovery Bay area next. And that's all based on call volume and availability of resources. And here on the San Pablo Bay, we've got a lot better response reliability from the Coast Guard than we have farther east in our jurisdiction. So it's a cooperative. We also work with Richmond Fire that does their best to maintain their boat response from the Richmond Harbor. We also have a hazardous materials team. Our hazardous materials team has been in place for what, Andy, about 8 to 10 years? Yeah. And that program was started through a grant from the Office of Emergency Services. part of that grant is we provide a regional service for that hazmat team. So a couple of weeks ago, we had a tanker rollover in San Rafael, and we assembled our hazmat team, responded over the bridge to San Rafael and assisted them with mitigating that rolled over tank. So a very layman's example of how that works is basically our hazmat team has to tap into the tank and take all that flammable liquid out before you can right that truck. And that whole process is a hazardous process, but it's necessary because you just can't take those tanks and right them. If you try to do that, the tank will actually tear apart. Now you've got a massive spill of things that shouldn't be in the environment, things that could be dangerous to people. So it's great that Confire has that capability, and it's great that we're able to help out our neighbors. I brag about it because it's really a great improvement in our system. We work jointly with county health and provide hazardous materials response to emergencies within our fire district. We work jointly with county hazmat on a lot of responses. We also work with Richmond Fire Department, who has a hazmat team. So when the hazmat team was on their way back from San Rafael, we had another tanker roll over on I-80, which was just on the border, just in the city of Richmond. So our hazmat team came in with Richmond, and we helped them handle that response. So it was a bad day for tanker rollovers a couple of weeks ago. Really briefly, our Fire Prevention Bureau was successful in getting a $3 million grant for a shaded fuel break in the community of Walnut Creek and Rossmore and Lafayette. We kicked off that program, or I'm sorry, we kicked off that project, I think it was 2 weeks ago. And it'll take us about a year to construct it, but essentially we're going to build a shaded fuel break around the entire community of Rossmore. And what a shaded fuel break is basically we'll work on ridge lines and we'll take the hazard fuels down, limb up the trees. And what that does is it gives us the opportunity, if there were to be a fire that we're spreading out of Rossmore or into Rossmore, to be able to control that fire when it gets to the ridge. It also gives us opportunities when we're working with the air tankers to be able to anchor off those shaded fuel breaks and be able to protect a community. I'm super excited that we're in the very initial phases of planning our next project, which is going to be outside Wildcat Canyon and kind of along the ridge above East Richmond Heights and into the city of San Pablo and kind of turning the corner towards Sobrante. So we're working on applying for that grant, and we're hopeful that we'll be successful in being able to add that to our repertoire. So if Michelle's on, hope that it's still too much of her thunder with that announcement. The CAL FIRE State Board of Forestry. Sobrante lies mostly in a very high fire hazard severity zone. So I'm going to make this really brief. If any of you have received notices from the State Board of Forestry or CAL FIRE regarding evacuation standards for where you live, if you could reach out to Chief Bozo and I at the end of the meeting, we want to provide you with more information so we can keep you up to date on that process. The State Board of Forestry determined that subdivisions with more than 30 units that are within a very high fire hazard severity zone are going to be required to build secondary means of egress if there's only one means of access and egress to that area. It may or may not apply, but we've had subdivisions within the fire district that have been notified. If you've been notified regarding that, please talk to me after the meeting. I'll provide you with more information on what we're doing to follow up on that, make sure that the communication's there and that we're scrutinizing to make sure that's actually required. Last subject is we maintain our own fire engines, and one of the biggest challenges we have is maintaining mechanics. So I'm very happy to report that we were able to hire 2 diesel mechanics, and that's a big lift for us because I think we're down to 4 or 5 mechanics. So you can imagine maintaining fire engines from here to Discovery Bay. There's a lot of fire engines and a lot of fire trucks. So we're over the moon to have new mechanics join us. We have added 2 crew carriers to our hand crew program. So they'll be out this summer. So we'll have more reliability to be able to transport our hand crew throughout the fire district. I think I told you about our fire truck at Walnut Creek that was actually hit on the freeway last year and suffered significant damage. We were all concerned that it was going to total the truck, but we were fortunate to be able to have it repaired. So it took a year, but we got that fire truck repaired. And that fire truck is a $3 million apparatus. And it takes 4 years to build those fire trucks. So we're over the moon and we were able to get it repaired and get it back into our system. We are in the process of receiving 2 additional fire trucks, truck companies. Those are the larger apparatus with the ladder. Most of them are tiller apparatus, tractor drawn aerials. But which was better news because we got 2 of those trucks finished. One was damaged at the factory and one suffered an accident being driven from Wisconsin to here. So if it weren't for bad luck, we wouldn't have any luck at all when it comes to trucks. But we're working on getting those trucks repaired and hopefully into our fleet, within the next 6 to 10 months. We were able to deploy the 7 truck companies we deployed throughout the county. And we're making sure that those old trucks are very well maintained so we can hang on to them just a little bit longer and wait for the new trucks to get here. That's the end of my report. I'm going to hand it over to Chief Boatso, who's going to talk about a residential structure fire that we had here in Sobrante that involved a rescue.
So we have we have many classifications of fires, but when it comes to residential fires, whether that's in apartments or high rises or homes, they can either be contents fires where all occupants are out, or they can be what we call rescue fires where victims are trapped, or we have a high degree of suspicion that they're trapped based on time of day and indications from bystanders. So we've had rescue fires where victims have been taken from the structure that's been burning on January 12th, February 1st, and February 3rd in Contra Costa County Fire. The most recent one that we had was on February 3rd. It was on Mifflin Avenue here in Sobrante. Your engine 69 from down the street responded with San Pablo engine, same fire department, but from a different domain, San Pablo engine 70, they were first to arrive along with truck 70. Engine 69 retained command because they literally arrived at the same time. Engine 70 initiated fire attack, and when 69 arrived on scene, they had heavy fires, we'll say, coming from the front door, burning across the front of the structure, coming out the front window. We also had reports that the dispatcher was on the phone with the victim who could not get out of the house and then stopped talking. That victim reported their location in the front living room. We essentially had to fight our way in to the front room to locate the victim and extinguish the fire, control the fire, and ensure that there weren't any additional victims in the house, because we never just say, oh, okay, great, we got one, we're good. We always cover every corner and every nook and cranny to make sure that they're not additional victims of people that weren't initially accounted for. Well, I thought they were at work. No, they're upstairs taking a nap. So we had companies actually laddering the second floor windows, crawling into a very hot, very volatile, very smoky environment, looking for additional victims. And we had companies extracting a victim under extreme fire conditions while controlling the fire. The victim was removed. When the victim was removed from the structure, they were in cardiac arrest. Our fire medics, as Chief Gage mentioned, resuscitated that victim, and that they were able to return a pulse and get viable vital signs and rapidly transport that victim to Kaiser Richmond, and then that victim was transported to UC Davis. At the time that this report was written, just a few days ago, the victim, or I'd say about a week ago, the victim was still alive. Unfortunately, that victim did succumb to their injuries, and it became a fatality fire. We work extremely hard, as Chief opened with his report. Training is our center focus. I think even my own parents would wonder, well, what do you do in between calls? You play cards, and we are literally training 8 to 5 every day in some way, shape, or form. And the most important topic of training right now is that fire attack combined with a search, because we do a lot of rescue fires in Contra Costa County Fire. We're getting, unfortunately for the citizens, a lot of significant repetition in that realm. So we do train on that. And given that we have those, this victim was extricated from this burning structure in a very rapid time frame. They were in cardiac arrest, and then they had a pulse, and they were assisted in ventilations based on rapid actions from our paramedics. And so it's something that, you know, we have really, you know, honed in on as a craft that we have to be very, very good at, and that we will risk quite a bit to extract a viable victim under fire conditions. So that occurred on February 3rd at 4:16 p.m. I believe the first engine arrived in under 4 minutes, along with the second, and went to work right away and got that victim out the front door. And that's the end of that report, Chief.
Thanks, Eddie. Like Chief Botso said, the center focus of our training this last year has been live fire training, rescue, improving our ability to respond to those types of calls, coordinate our actions. And I don't think anybody expected that we would have 3 rescue fires in a matter of weeks. So we prepare for it. We hope for the best. Just a few things to think about in your home in terms of safety is one of the most important things you can do is make sure your smoke detectors are maintained. Nowadays, smoke detectors are provided almost exclusively with a 5-year battery. So you don't even have to worry about changing the battery every year. But checking those smoke detectors, making sure there's a smoke detector at a minimum, 1 on each level of your home. And then if you have an additional smoke detector inside any bedroom that you sleep in, that's an added level of security. I can't tell you how many times I've had victims tell me I heard the smoke alarm and I got out. That it's incredibly important to make sure that you have a smoke detector in your home. The other thing that we've learned more about is basically close your bedroom door at night. It's critical. It's so bad for me when I have my nieces and nephews and family over before I go to sleep. I make sure everybody's door is closed. It is literally life and death. Yeah. If you have a fire in your home and your door is closed, your chances of survival is extremely high. And it's really sad when we rescue somebody in their bedroom and their door's open. If they had gone to sleep with their door closed, a lot of times those tragedies, those fatalities could be prevented. So think about those 2 things and please share it with your family, because as you can tell, these types of incidents hit us really hard. And you know, we're here for you. So we want to make sure that we not only do a great job, but also tell you how to prevent something like this from happening. So think about those things: smoke detectors and closing your door at night. If Michelle's on, I can hand it off.
I'm ready.
We had a very significant fire in St. Paolo just a few weeks ago, and the front entryway and living room were charred to a crisp. Charred. No one would have survived those fire conditions. Low ceilings with 2x12 tongue and groove really holds the heat, just throws it right down to the floor. The bedrooms were closed. Both bedrooms, the doors were closed. One bedroom, the bed had pink sheets, bright pink, and when you walked in there, they were bright pink. No soot stains, no nada.
So was that bedroom on the second floor?
That bedroom was on the same floor, fire floor. Yeah. The bedroom to the left had white sheets, bright white. When you walk in, it was almost like a fire had not happened. The separation, those doors do an amazing job. I mean, the contrast is, it'll knock you off your feet how stark that contrast is. Luckily, those bedrooms had windows where occupants were able to escape. And the conditions in those bedrooms with the doors closed was starkly different than those conditions. If those doors had been open, those conditions would have been the same. And so, and the person would not have survived, but it was a survivable atmosphere because those doors were closed. So I just can't, I mean, we just had that. And it was like, wow, they actually closed their doors. Look at the condition of their sheets and pillows. It was like, you could almost lay in that bed. So.
Thank you. We can turn over to Michelle and then we'll close out our report.
Thanks, Chief. I appreciate your support. So the Chief spoke about what you can do to take mitigation efforts inside your home. I'll be speaking about mitigation efforts outside of your home. The Contra Costa Wildfire Mitigation Program current project count is 182 projects identified and 79 complete. The remaining projects from 2023 will be addressed this year. We encourage mitigation groups and individual residents to identify additional projects. Please reach out to me if additional support is needed to enter your project into the request portal. Residents are encouraged to also apply for the Low-Income Exterior Hazard Control Program. This program allows for $1,500 to address Zone 0 defensible space projects. Zone 0 is the area 0 to 5 feet from your home or structure. It does require last year's tax return to verify income on a sliding scale. As a reminder, please redact your Social Security number as it is not needed to determine eligibility. Please visit the Contra Costa County Fire Protection District website at www.cccfpd.org for more information and a complete list of wildfire mitigation programs. As Chief mentioned, on January 9th, the board approved an application for a CAL FIRE grant in the amount of $1.1 million for a 73-acre shaded fuel bank project in the East Richmond Heights area, which was submitted on January 10th. The shaded fuel break will reduce fuel loads relative to areas outside of the fuel break, and the shade provided by the canopy improves the microclimate conditions of the underlying fuels. The shaded fuel break is intended to help reduce fuel loads while also providing a defensible position for fire crews to engage in fire suppression. Letters of support were received from the City of Richmond and the East Bay Regional Parks District. Representatives from Supervisor Joya's office currently have the project map available for your review. And we would like to also thank Supervisor Joya, Robert, and Ronnie for their continued collaboration and ongoing support. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm open to answering any questions.
Well, I just want to thank you all for a really comprehensive and informative report today. I've got a couple of questions. First question, it was really interesting to hear about the large number of psychiatric emergencies. How do you coordinate with law enforcement when you have these emergencies? Because it seems like that might be something that comes up.
Yeah, that's a great question. So police officers in the state of California have the ability to put people on what's called a 5150 hold. So oftentimes people that are identified that are having psychiatric emergencies that require emergency psychiatric care, they're actually contacted by the police first. So they'll make sure the scene is safe, place that person on a hold, and then they're transported by one of our ambulances to the psychiatric emergency room. So we work really closely with the police agencies on psychiatric emergency response.
Great. Second question, that was a really interesting piece of information about the need to close the bedroom door. I mean, I had never heard of that before. So, you know, I'll mention it to my wife tonight, and we do that anyways, so I'm glad. But we're on an upper floor, so, but at any rate, what can you tell us about the cause of these recent fires? Is there any sort of common thread that comes up?
The causes of all those fires are still under investigation.
Yeah.
We do have a comprehensive fire investigation unit that, you know, to the effect where we will extinguish all visible fire and make sure it does not spread, but we will not engage in what's called overhaul operations, meaning demolition of the building or that portions of the building to search for hidden fires until the investigator can look for things like burn patterns, can get accounts from bystanders. So we'll basically go hands off on the fire room and any related areas where we think there was significant fire damage until they can get in there and then gather all the information that they need to then compile a comprehensive report on their investigation.
The investigation is even more detailed when there's significant injury or fatality. So we'll definitely update you probably next month, because we'll have the cause of the fire. Just, you know, our investigators take pride in what they do, and they want to make sure that any cause is accurate.
So thinking kind of more generally, you know, I can remember back when I was a lot younger, it was always sort of the typical cause of somebody smoking in bed or something like that. And I imagine the causes of fires have changed over the years. So if you could look at these really severe, life-threatening structure fires, like over the last 5 years, what can you say in general about the causes, you know, that we should be careful of?
This time of year, a lot of our fires have to do with heating. They have to do with candles. It's just that time of the year where we get those types of fire causes. The other thing that can happen during this time of the year is overloading circuits with space heaters and things like that, and that leads to electrical failures. So usually fires this time of year mostly have to do with those things. But the most common cause of fires in your home are kitchen fires. And oftentimes unattended pots, oil, things like that are oftentimes the cause of residential fires. So making sure that, you know, if you're cooking, if you're tired, turn off everything, go to sleep. Because it's amazing how many home fires are caused by unattended cooking devices. But this time of year, you add the causes of heating and candles and things like that to those causes.
And the other thing I would say, from, you know, all district boundaries within the entire district, we run into, you know, because if we can get to the fire quickly, meaning we can crawl, you know, through the smoke, we can get a knockdown on that fire pretty quickly. One thing that can really impede our performance is fording conditions. So that seems to be a common thread in, I'm not referencing this fire specifically, but there are those conditions that we encounter often, whether they're on medical aids or in fires. We had one recently down in San Pablo where the fording conditions were so bad that the home was red tagged on site, and the occupant was advised to not stay there, A, because they didn't have working smoke detectors, and B, they had no way to exit their home if it were to catch on fire. So we do run into that often, and that can be a big red flag for us and can put us in significant danger. I've suffered that personally on fires, where I find myself in a hoarder's environment where the pathways through the home are very narrow, the fuel loading is very high, and it can cause significant problems in getting the victims and getting them out, and also getting the fire out. So
She had her hand up first.
Well, this is just a question out of curiosity: is how many firefighters are generally on duty at any time at a station? Also, are paramedics a different category than a regular firefighter? And also, do you keep the ambulances basically at the stations, or they come from hospitals? I never really thought about these.
Sure. I'll take that. So referencing the fire that I told you about earlier, it took 42 firefighters at the scene to mitigate that incident. But that's when we know that there is a rescue, we will strike a second alarm. An alarm, sometimes, you know, if you watch some of the fire shows, what was a 3-alarm fire, was a 2-alarm fire? For us, our standard response for a residential structure fire is 4 engines and 1 truck. The engines carry the water and the hose. The trucks carry a lot of ladders and a lot of tools. We essentially double that response, not to get overly complicated, every time we add an alarm for residential. When we go to commercial, we knock down the amount of engines and we add an additional truck, because there's a little bit of verticality that's associated with that. So, and then we will add alarms for victims trapped. We'll add alarms if it spreads to other buildings, and In general, each engine has 3 personnel and each truck has 4 personnel on board. And our partners generally follow that same. The paramedics today don't respond, well, we have paramedics on each apparatus. So on our fire engines, fire trucks, and our rescues, we have at least one paramedic, a fire medic. So they could go in and all their turnouts and apparatus and be assigned by the chief or myself to say, hey, you're not going in, I need you to care for that burn victim right now. They kind of take their mask off, they open up their coat, they grab their medical bag, they go to work finding veins to spike an IV, and they basically turn into, you know, what some of us are old enough to remember the show Emergency with, you know, where they were fire paramedics and they're, you know, starting an IV and we're assisting with ventilations and, you know, performing CPR. That currently the ambulances cruise around the county and they're moved around according to need. They do have their own quarters but they won't bunch up there. They'll be, and they're so busy that sometimes we'll go down to where we don't have an ambulance available. And we're looking for ambulances. They come quickly available, but we do actually find what Chief referenced with regard to the BLS, which is a basic life support. Those are 2 EMTs. They can do things like knee pain, tummy pain, things like that, to where they can afford to stay at the hospital a little longer to find a bed. Our paramedics do things like difficulty breathing, chest pain, life-threatening injuries, and we need them to drop that patient off so that patient can get definitive care and then get back into the field so they can get the next one. I think that, did I miss anything?
Yeah, no, we really did. The only thing I add is our ambulances work a 12-hour shift.
Oh, yeah.
And they're really busy. We're moving them around all the time. Our firefighters work a minimum of a 48-hour shift. So getting them into their quarters, getting them rest, you know, they're working for a longer period of time. Our ambulances are so busy, we only deploy them for 12 hours at a time, so we can give them time off and they can come back to work the next day or the day after. So the schedule's changed just based on the acuity and the amount of time we work.
And you said that you asked the question, the difference between a regular firefighter and a paramedic firefighter. Chief is a paramedic firefighter still, right?
Used to be.
Used to be.
Yeah.
So when he was on the engine or the truck, he was the person who could do invasive medicine, put a tube down your throat, put an IV needle in your arm, and give you drug dosages. Me as an EMT, I can assist in that. I basically become his assistant as an EMT. I can do chest compressions, I can squeeze a bag to breathe in oxygen or medicine, but I'm not doing any of the invasives. And that's what, and Chief is also, in his days as a paramedic, he's interpreting heart rhythms. So the same heart tracing that you get in a doctor's office, we can give you in the field and determine if you're having a heart attack or you're having some form of electrical event that would warrant you going to the hospital. So that's the difference between a fire medic and a firefighter EMT.
Okay, I've become aware that Pinole is building several 6 to 7 story high rises. Do we currently have the equipment?
That's a great question. That just came up today.
Oh, okay.
So, as if you weren't aware, Contra Costa Fire provides fire services in the city of Pinole now under contract. So we work with the city. They pay Contra Costa Fire a contract fee to be their fire department. Part of that is making sure that we plan for the future.
Yeah.
So our fire chief was very aware that these types of projects were being built, which is pretty common throughout the Bay Area. Anywhere you see a fire station or you're close to mass transit, they're building, you know, 5-story residential over a floor of commercial. We're starting to see more of those developments in Pinole in like three different locations. So our fire chief is working with the city of Pinole to purchase a ladder truck so we can adequately serve those buildings. We also work with, of course, our truck company in the city of San Pablo that has 104-foot stick.
Yep.
And we work with the city of Richmond that maintains 2 truck companies, the Rodeo Hercules Fire District, because like I told you before, fires don't care what jurisdiction you work for. We all work together, we respond, and and handle things, but we gotta have the right equipment to do it. So yes, that's a great question, and we've actually ordered that truck. It takes 4 years to build.
Yeah,
And hopefully by the time those buildings are up, we'll have a ladder to be able to support emergencies.
COVID killed that momentum of building apparatus, and this is not a Contra Costa problem, nor is getting apparatus hit on the freeway. It's happening everywhere, and I can't put my finger on one cause, but every fire department is screaming for engines, and it's like a 3 to 4 and trucks, and it's like a 3 to 4 year supply chain thing that they cannot recover that momentum prior to COVID. So
Demand issue.
Yeah.
The population is doing this, and the buildings are doing this, and the fires are doing this, but the apparatus are not coming out
We
fast.
take care of our apparatus like they're children,
Totally.
because we need them to be here when we need them.
Totally.
They're having to last longer and longer, and we're getting more and more calls. And that's why you see 2 firefighters get excited about 2 mechanics. It's like, that's awesome for us, because our mechanics are the backbone of our operation.
If you go by Station 69 at like 8:30-ish in the morning, 9-ish in the morning, you'll see someone doing the equivalent of a pre-flight check. We call it a DMV, but they're gonna run the pump, they're gonna make sure that everything and every button is in working order. We have no warning lights, because we wanna, number one, serve you. We wanna get to you and your loved ones now. If they're having a problem, we wanna be there now. The other thing is, we wanna be able to reach for, in the dark, in the blind, a piece of equipment, know that that equipment functions as to spec and as we've been trained, without thinking about it. And so if that's not in working order, that sends off huge, no pun intended, alarm bells for us. Because now it means we have to get on a spare, we gotta tell the chief, we're moving these apparatus around. We can cover and compensate for each other, but it's not ideal, So we want your engine working for you and your family.
The ladder truck in San Pablo this morning returned from its service. It was out of service for about a month and a half. We put that ladder truck in service, our mechanics picked it up, it's already in service in Pittsburgh. So that's how critical these apparatus are.
Further questions? Chris?
Yeah, 2, one is that in terms of dryers, you hear about dryers and dryers. So it's kind of a discussion between my wife and me, like if we have 10 minutes left on the dryer and we're going out somewhere, is it okay to let it go for that 10 minutes, or now when we turn it off, turn it back on, we get back, but it seems like it'd be so much easier to let it finish off those 10 minutes.
I don't leave my dryer off when I'm not in the house. I just don't. Because you see so many dryer fires, and the most important thing you do is make sure those lint traps are made.
Yeah.
And if you're drying your clothes and you're finding that they're wet, after you dry them, there's something wrong with your dryer, have it checked out. But it's one of those things where I don't ever leave my dryer on. I leave the house because, that's what we do. We see the worst, but I would say, make sure you're maintaining them. If it's not operating correctly and thoroughly drying your clothes, it's kind of a red flag. There's something wrong with your dryer.
Okay, and the other thing is that when you're saying that 25 or 20% of their ambulance time being for medical case, I presume that's because they're repeat cases as opposed to somebody who calls and puts it down. That's not going to happen that often.
It's
a psychological breakdown every couple of weeks.
Yeah, you're right. Mental health is a pandemic in our country, and it's oftentimes we encounter these same patients regularly. And I know that.
So do you anticipate that this funding that there's talking about putting into mental health things, is that going to have an impact on some?
Oh, I hope so. Yeah, I think the better care that people get, the easier they can access care. The compliance with medication is huge. So all those things are hopefully going to improve the situation.
Do you coordinate with A3?
Yeah, we
also
do.
Okay.
So I always get it mixed up. Is it H3 or A3?
Well, A3 is the behavioral health.
Okay.
I don't know, anyone, anytime, anywhere.
Okay. Yeah, so we do work with them. So one of the great outcomes of Measure X was we were able to fund better mental health care. So we work with the county health department and A3 to provide better services to particularly the homeless that happen to be having mental health crises. So we have firefighters that we work with that we can kind of report that, hey, we've got a person we're really concerned about, can you go check on them and help them, make sure they have the resources that they need. We actually have fire prevention officers that specialize in homeless fire threat, because we have many fires that are caused within homeless camps. And, they identify, I think the last number I looked at, there's over 220 homeless camps throughout Contra Costa County. And these inspectors go out and they try to educate people experiencing homelessness how to prevent fires, within their encampments. And we work with them to try to make sure they understand it's like, hey, we want you to live in a safer environment. But if you're living in this environment, make sure you keep a clearance around your living area. And here's how to prevent, cooking fires or how to prevent, other types of emergencies. And they're working full time with A3 to try to improve those.
So H3 is health, housing, and homelessness. A follow-up question. I wanted to ask Captain Basso so I work for Safe Organized Spaces, and we are on the ground in encampments every day of the year. And we want to do more safety, particularly fire safety. So if I sent you some things, very simple things, and we're also going to try to get fire extinguishers to people and pay them how to use them, could I write to you and you could look over something, or maybe we could have a meeting and.
Yeah, you need to look to evaluate it as a curriculum.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and I'm happy to look at it, and I would absolutely defer to our fire prevention.
And we will get them together with you.
Yeah.
That's really their job.
It would be great to,
once
we get organized, like, because our staff, we'd like to train our staff, because the staff are going to go out and encounter people and then talk about, look at the situation, help them make it as safe as possible. Like in Richmond, there are huge, because we're located in Richmond, a huge number of the fires that the fire department responds to are encampment fires. And so we want to do everything we can to keep people safe and keep everybody safe, but also the area safe.
In a community like El Sobrante too, is people that are experiencing homelessness tend to live in areas that are hazardous to have an outside environment.
Yeah.
So we're looking at this to try to prevent those types of fires, because that environment spread and become a major problem.
Yeah, we also work in El Sobrante, and we actually created for the county, or actually for the city of Richmond, but we distributed to other places, a really detailed map of Richmond, San Pablo, and El Sobrante of the encampments, and rated them for a combination of fire safety and other issues. So it's a big concern of ours.
Yeah, I definitely want to connect our fire prevention officers.
Okay, great.
So you guys can compare notes.
That's fine.
Further questions for fire protection?
Anybody on Zoom have any questions for the fire presentations? Doesn't appear to be.
So this was probably,
Thank you so
from
much.
my history of being on the MAC, one of the great fire presentations of all time. I really learned a lot.
One point of personal privilege, I'm going to be retiring from Contra Costa Fire, March 29th.
No.
So I just want to tell you what a pleasure it's been to be a part of this community. I came here 21 years ago as the first paramedic on Engine 69, just down the street, and it's been a pleasure. Every day of that 21-year career, there's been sad days, but they've been severely outpaced by really happy days. So I just want to say it's been a pleasure to serve you. It's been a pleasure to work with this council. You might see me one more time, but I just wanted to say thank you to everyone, and it's been a pleasure.
And we finally were able to pronounce your last name properly. Just took us a few years.
Hey, hopefully the next guy will have.
We may not be able to spell it, but we can I can spell it.
Hopefully our next chief will have a tough last name too.
Well, thank you so much for all those years of serving us and for working so hard on our behalf. We really appreciate it, because I think we're probably, if we look at any community, we're at as much risk of fire as anybody. So yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome. You get right next time.
Okay, our next item is, I guess we won't have a highway patrol presentation, so we have the Deputy Health Officer, Dr. Victoria from Concord Costa Health.
Hi, I think I'm on Zoom, so hi everyone, thanks for having me. I'm Dr. McCurry, as mentioned. I'm one of the Deputy Health Officers. I was just asked here today to kind of give a quick update on COVID, and I was going to include other respiratory infections. COVID, I'll start just kind of going over the cases and what we're seeing, but COVID case rates, along with influenza, flu, and RSV, we have been going down the last couple of weeks. We did see kind of a peak in January, and then now I've seen kind of a decrease in cases, hospitalizations, and wastewater data shows that as well. That's both for the whole county and West County. We do know sometimes flu can have it's still circulating. There's still a good amount of both COVID, flu, and RSV, and sometimes we can see a slight increase, like a second wave of flu, later in a month, like March or so. But we're keeping an eye on that. The most important thing for all of the respiratory illnesses is for everyone to get vaccinated and stay up to date on their vaccines. There's the RSV vaccine that is recommended for new infants and pregnant women as well as individuals over 60. There's also the COVID vaccine, which is recommended for everyone. That the newest one came out in fall, so if you haven't gotten the newest one, and the flu vaccine happens annually. So the best protection against kind of severe disease of all of them and hospitalizations is getting vaccinated. For COVID, there still is treatments available for individuals who are high risk of severe disease. So if anyone tests positive for COVID, then really following up with their provider to see if they're a good candidate for treatment. The other thing that's kind of big is recently CDPH had updated their recommendations for isolation. I think just earlier this month or January, where they essentially in non-healthcare settings are really recommending isolation, kind of thinking more along the lines of flu for individuals who test similar to flu for individuals who test positive for COVID. So if you're positive, you have symptoms, you should stay home until your symptoms are improving, or when you don't have fever over 24 hours. If you're positive and don't have symptoms, you don't have to stay home, but you should wear a mask when out. You should also consider not for 10 days and consider not, if able, not interacting with individuals who might be high risk for exposure or high risk for severe disease. And similarly, if you had symptoms, they do same thing and do recommend wearing a mask. They also updated their testing guidance to really just recommend individuals, if you have symptoms, definitely test for COVID. If you were exposed to someone with COVID and don't have symptoms, they don't necessarily recommend testing unless you yourself are at risk for severe disease, just so you can get treatment within the recommended time frame, because there is a time frame where treatment is that you would need to be treated if you have positive for COVID, or if you're around individuals who are high risk for severe infection, just to test within the first 5 days. And of course, kind of isolate if you have symptoms and test. And that's really because we're seeing kind of a difference in what we've seen COVID in the last few years. We are seeing a lot of cases, but really we see a high burden of immunity, whether that's from getting COVID or the vaccine in the community. We're seeing less severe disease in a way, but less hospitalizations, less overburdening of the hospitals because of that. And so we're just kind of at a new phase of COVID and really monitoring the cases and if anything changes. I think that's all I'll say, but happy to take any questions.
Okay, I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
So, for example, the place where I work, the institution where I work, is now requiring people to have vaccination with the monovalent vaccine prior to going on campus.
Mm-hmm.
But they said that anybody who was vaccinated after October 1st is likely to have had that. Is that something you can clarify? October 1st, 23.
Yeah, so the monovalent vaccine came out in like October, like the end of September, early October. And as soon as it was FDA approved, the bivalent was just taken off the shelves, even if it wasn't quite available in the pharmacies. And so if you were vaccinated after October, it will likely be the monovalent, as the bivalent vaccine were no longer available. And the bivalent vaccine is the newest vaccine. And so they're recommending essentially that everyone is up to date on their vaccine, as that's any age group should have gotten a monovalent, and that would make you up to date.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Okay. So is there expected to be a new vaccine coming out soon? Or is this the one that's going to be out for a while?
They haven't quite said what their future recommendations or what they're thinking is going to happen with the COVID vaccine. It seems likely that it will be kind of a yearly thing like COVID and so, or like flu, but more to come as they kind of review the data, see what's needed. If things change drastically or there's a really highly susceptible variant, they might try to push something sooner, but I imagine I'm guessing it will be a yearly vaccine, and it'll probably kind of be similar to what they do with the flu, kind of a best guess as they see what's circulating at that time.
Okay, I have another question. So I had COVID in October, and I was wondering if I haven't been vaccinated since, and I was wondering how much protection I have at this point or when I should get the vaccine.
I would actually recommend getting it now. So there is, after you have a COVID infection, there's no real like standard recommendations for when you should get vaccinated. Some people, depending on your risk, depending on other things, they might just recommend getting the vaccine right after your infection, because it is possible for individuals' immunity to kind of wane or be different and to get COVID soon after you got it, even if you have a little, just depends on what your immune response was. There have been some studies or suggestions that having COVID will kind of give you a good immunity for a couple of months, maybe 2 to 3 months. And the kind of sweet spot for some people might be getting a vaccine after 3 months or 2 months. But and so you kind of would fit that time frame, essentially kind of past that. And so, but people definitely can get COVID soon after they had it initially, because it's hard to know exactly how much people's immunity really mounted. And so if you're some things that people consider, if you just had COVID, if you're traveling, going to be exposed to a lot of people, if you're high risk for infection, or you have a condition that maybe your immunity might not have responded or mounted a great immune response, kind of even right after you get over COVID is a good time also to get vaccinated. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering, how many variants are there to this corona? What do you call it, corona or COVID now?
The scientific name is coronavirus, but everyone kind of calls it COVID as a shorthand.
How many variants are there?
There's a lot. I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but there's a lot of variants of COVID. And it's kind of like flu kind of does the same thing. There's a lot of shifts in their kind of makeup, and so they make different variants. A lot of the variants that we're still seeing are all Omicron related, and so there hasn't been a significant shift where they, in the last like year or two, where they have thought that this is so different from the last kind of strand that it needs a whole nother like subclass. But which each kind of transition in their makeup, all of these Omicron variants, and they all have like number names, but all of the Omicron variants just kind of make them a little more transmissible, so easier to get, a little more immune escape, and so you might not mount as big as immunity to them, and so that's why vaccination is important. But there's a lot of different variants out there, but it's kind of like flu where there's a lot of variants. We did see
one vaccine works for all the variants?
The vaccine that they made was based on the variants that were circulating that were very infectious. And so those are the main, it's a monovalent, so that there was like a one that was circulating when they made it back in the summer, but they have shown that they still mount a good response for the current circulating variants, and you still would be protected against severe disease. And they also have shown some potential, or when you look at studies for COVID particularly, that it protects against other comorbidities, other things that might happen from COVID, like long COVID. Kids and adults can get multi-inflammatory syndrome, which is a condition that happens after COVID for some individuals that can make people pretty sick. And so getting vaccine decreases your chances of that as well.
Thank you. I would like to ask about a couple of other conditions. The HRV virus, I think it is, the respiratory
RS.
What is it?
RSV.
RSV, excuse me. Virus. That even if you're a senior, if you don't have other issues, that they're not really recommending it because I think that the actual you can have worse reaction to the vaccination. And the other thing is about tuberculosis. I understand that it's the uptick around the country, and I'm just wondering if that's affecting us.
So the RSV, you're correct. They're recommending it, particularly for like the young 68 to like I forget the exact frame, but for people with high risk conditions. As you get older, they recommend it. It's shared clinical decision making as well with your provider, and so kind of reviewing if it makes sense for you is also kind of the recommendations currently with RSV as they continue to study its benefits and to see if it should be a full out recommendation. They just wanted to, without shared clinical decision making, they just thought it could have enough benefit that they wanted to make sure it was approved for this year. So that's why it's kind of still has that shared decision making. I heard tuberculosis, but I didn't hear the last part, but I think you said an uptick.
I'm just saying, are we having any upticks here? Is that becoming an issue in our county?
Yeah, we are seeing an increase in tuberculosis cases when we compare them to like previous before COVID, which is similar all across California and the Bay Area, that we just are seeing more tuberculosis. And so we are monitoring and kind of reviewing. When we look at tuberculosis, we see unfortunately kind of an inequity in who gets tuberculosis, often individuals who are more vulnerable, individuals who may be using substances, individuals who come from like low income households or communities, and you know, often can be from individuals who live in other countries who might have had who has a high incidence of tuberculosis, and so also can be contributing to just different household dynamics as they come in. We are definitely monitoring, encouraging anyone who has potential tuberculosis contacts or travel or come back and forth to definitely get tested if there's any concerns. And then really the most important thing is some people might have what they have latent tuberculosis. And so that's why testing is important even if people don't have symptoms. And if they have latent and have risk factors, and if they have latent tuberculosis, to really treat latent tuberculosis, because although it doesn't, latent tuberculosis just means you have the infection, but you're not actually, doesn't cause you any problems, any symptoms, and you can't give it to other people, but it can soon turn into active tuberculosis over time and cause people to get really sick, to need a lot of medications, to be contagious. And so really treating the latent tuberculosis is kind of a focus of California as well, CDC, and then really kind of trying to identify and support individuals who have active TB.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So if there are no more questions for Dr. Mercourian, thank you very much for a very informative report, and appreciate your waiting during all the other presentations. So thank you so much.
Of course, happy to join. Thank you.
Okay, so now we get to the applications for development plans, variance reports, building modification requests, etc. The first one is county file number CDMS 22-10. And this was something that I don't recall we ever got, but apparently it's been something that The engineers have been waiting for, the county engineer. So at any rate, better late than never. So we can start with the review of this application, which essentially they're taking a lot which is off of Hillside, Hilltop Boulevard, and east of La Paloma. And they want to take this lot and subdivide it into 2 lots. One of the lots, the one that I believe is facing Hilltop, has an existing structure on it. They want to eventually build on the second lot, which would be
It's behind it.
which would be behind it, and they want to build a little access road. I'm wondering if there's a representative of the project here.
Yes.
Okay, so great. What's your name?
My name is Robert Newell.
Robert, would you like to take us through it? Thank you so much for coming
Happy
and
to.
presenting to us.
Do I need to come?
Yeah, that would be great. If you could be on the camera, that would be an extra bonus.
If you wanted to sit here.
I was told that there were 8 of them, and I enlarged my proposal to give you an idea of where.
And there are 8 of us, 4 of us are here.
Oh, you'll pass it around here, that might be helpful. I'm sorry, I didn't know that we had an audience there. Somebody's getting this block.
Yeah, if you can sit on either side, I think.
How about here? Is this okay?
No.
Where you were it's actually where I was.
Yeah, but if you're this one, I think this is the one they'll get the camera.
Or Ronnie can.
Here you're fine.
I don't know if you can zoom in on you. Not too close.
And you're ready for your close.
So, floor is yours, sir.
Okay, this project, I'm sorry that you haven't gotten any information on it. It's been in the making now for about 2 years. This is going on the 3rd year that I've had it submitted to the county. And there have been some delays, I can't explain why, but what I have done is submitted this proposal. As you can see, if you look to the top left, Hilltop Drive there, and then just to the east of La Paloma Road, about 100 feet down, is where the beginning of the lot is. And it's a lot where I'm trying to subdivide it into 2 parcels, parcel A and parcel B. Parcel A currently has an existing structure on it. It's a single family house. And parcel B would have a single family house. I haven't had an architect draw it yet, but we have had it placed where it would be located on the lot. The lot has been surveyed, as you can see, with the surveyor stamp, so that we have everything laid out. Civil engineers have laid out an access road for fire and for access to get down to the second lot. It would be a private access road. And also that's where the public utilities would be located as well, alongside that road. The lot that I'm proposing, what I'm proposing is to add an additional structure on each of the lots, an ADU. of about 7,500 square feet. That would be about a 1-bedroom ADU. It would meet the county qualifications of no more than 7,500 square feet, and it would be well within the state regulations of 1,200 square feet. I don't know what.
Do you mean 750?
I'm sorry?
Do you mean 750?
750. Let's say. I'm sorry.
They're big.
That's an ADU of 750. I'm thinking 75. It's just another zero.
Small bit of detail.
A zero. Yeah, it's but each of the properties would have a 750 square foot ADU on it.
So I'm sorry to interrupt. It looks like there are two proposed buildings on parcel B.
Yes. Yeah. One would be a single family residence, and the other would be the ADU.
Okay.
So that I've gone through the process of working with Public Works. They've approved all of my requests, and they've given me some things that I would need to do, and we've met those, and they agreed that those are in conformance with their requirements. In addition, there is a 5-foot dedication frontage to add to Hilltop Drive there that would be taken from the property. The existing garage there would be demolished and moved over and attached where the existing structure is, and it would become a garage where you could drive in and then enter the existing structure through the garage. So that's on parcel A. My son.
Which is next to the 750 square foot structure.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And that's unless you have specific questions.
Sure.
It's gone through an environmental impact study, and I've agreed to the mitigation issues. Most of them concern noise and construction noise and that thing, and we've agreed that any construction would be within the parameters that are required, so that would not be disturbing the neighbors. The other issue was the various tribes in this area. We've agreed that if any artifacts were discovered, that we would contact the various tribes for them to come in and determine if in fact there would need to be any mitigation there.
So yeah, thank you so much for coming to our meeting and taking us through it. Just a question, are you asking any variances in terms of the setbacks from the streets?
No, I'm not asking for any variances in terms of setbacks. There currently the existing structure that's there is about 25 feet setback from the street. By providing the 5-foot dedication to the county for Hilltop Drive, that would still give us adequate space for setbacks and not be on the street at all.
And then a couple of other questions. One of them is I noticed that in the application there was a lot of discussion of trying your hardest to preserve the trees on the lot. Yeah, so that is appreciated. Just a question, looking at parcel B, what is the slope on that? Is that going downhill?
The slope goes downhill. As you can see, once you get beyond, I think it's 20 feet beyond the structure, there's a significant drop. And so that's really not usable land, so that would remain just unused land, so that there would be some safety. A fence would be across so that the residency in on parcel B would not be in danger.
When you had your engineering evaluation of the property? Did they talk about like erosion mitigation measures and things like that?
We talked about, I do have a, water runoff plan from rain. I've submitted that plan and it's been approved by the county as well.
Okay, and just one last question. Did you talk to people in the neighborhood to get their feedback?
They were invited to a public meeting and offered to provide their feedback, and the person that's handling this in CDC indicated there were very few comments or questions.
Okay, and those are all my questions. Thank you. Any others?
Well,
George?
You mentioned I'll call it the private road and the utilities. And I can see how that would be able to connect to the rectangular proposed building, but I'm not sure how would work for the other building.
Well, in terms of the sewage, it would simply a series of sewage pumps going from one over to the corner of the rectangular building, and then it would be pumped up. The current structure is already on sewage pumps, so that we would just simply update those and connect the other EDU to that.
Oh, okay. I wasn't even thinking of sewage. I was actually more on the lines of PG and water.
PG&E water would be simply, it's already under East Bay Mud, so that we could simply run water lines along the side of the access road there.
Okay. The reason I bring up water is I worked for almost 29 years in customer service. I dealt with they're called the new business office, and this to me would just my own limited knowledge. They're going to have to install a brand new meter and run a tap from the main line on Hilltop. And I know it can serve the rectangular building because it's on a direct line, but I'm not sure how, because I'm going to go out on a limb and say they're going to want to separately meter each of the two new buildings. And I'm not sure how they would get the irregularly shaped one on there. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong.
Doesn't just be an engineering issue.
It's at this point I've contacted PG&E and service and wanted to address those questions, and they've indicated to me that until I had a release from the fire department, they would not consider it.
Yes.
And the fire department says it's not at a point where they will consider it, so that I haven't been able to get the water, but it's all that I do know that it's an engineering, when the civil engineers were looking at it, they were telling me there was no problems.
Okay. Have you spoken with the East Bay Mud? It's called the new business office. Have you contacted them yet?
Yes, I have.
Okay. All right. So just check it, because just want to make sure, because sometimes when the reason I'm asking is that we've had instances where folks will come in and they'll subdivide the property, but not know that they need frontage on the actual street to be able to bring the utilities to it. So, but you've been dotting your I's and crossing your T's, so you know what you're talking about. So that's
Okay.
No, do you guys look?
I think it's a really good project. I drove past it.
They're protecting the trees. You're protecting trees.
Yes, I had an arborist come out, and he's told us what we need to do. We have to do. I think we have to enclose. There are 3 trees, 2 oak and 1 eucalyptus that we have to protect, and he's indicated that we have to, before construction starts, encircle those with fencing, and then do root trimming, I think he called it, and so that we protect the roots of the trees.
So we have a question from Harry.
I'm with the West County Wastewater District. I'm on their board of directors, and so I happen to know you have to get it. So if you haven't contacted them, that would be.
I've contacted them. I have paid my fees.
Why does that come to us?
We're just giving our community.
Okay.
They've asked, your community input, and they said that it would, facilitate my application if you gave your.
I'd like to take a vote on this. I approve.
Yeah, it's a great plan and it's well thought out.
Yes, like we said.
Well done.
Well, thank you very much.
As I can say, you are on it, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for coming to the meeting.
So, items D2 and D3 are very similar. They're both administrative approvals for this 2-story office building on the corner of San Pablo Dam and El Portal. So this is the ASF&O property on the I believe it's the southwest corner of that intersection, and they essentially want administrative approvals to put in an office that has a business that facilitates DMV applications, and then another approval to put in a real estate office. I see no reason why, to object to any businesses using their own property.
I agree. They're not modifying the buildings at all.
It's pretty clear.
I have a question about discussion items, because there was one on the agenda, and then this revised agenda included the one on Balmore Court, where they're subdividing the property. It was on the previous agenda, it's not on this one. I'm wondering what happened.
Yes, they, according to their update, there would be a lot of design changes.
So I basically, Ronnie sent me an email about it. And so they had indicated that the design might evolve a lot. Yeah. So I thought it was not worthwhile for them to.
Okay, that's fair, because I looked at that and I drove past the property and was going to ask something about the street itself, which Tom was able to explain the answer for that. Yeah, and that's why I was asking that question, because that design has this water.
So I'd like to propose that we vote on D2 and D3. I motion to approve.
Second.
No. Okay. Information items from MAC members. I will be at the next meeting. We'll be in Hawaii.
Oh, no, you have to participate. It's 3 hours behind. You can be able to.
On a boat.
Yeah. Get up to the Wi-Fi on the boat.
So one of the things I've been meaning to do, and maybe you can do this in April, is I've served on an oversight committee for the Martinez refinery incident. And now we have, information both from the investigation of the health impact of the catalyst release, as well as the root causes. And I believe that information is now ready to disclose. And I was hoping that maybe in the April agenda, I could give a report of my participation in the committee. Some of the information, particularly related to kind of root cause analysis, is really interesting, and I think it sheds light on, all of the refineries in the area and kind of, the risks associated with being in an area that has a lot of these facilities. I mean, it was really an interesting process. So maybe that'll count as my suggestion for an agenda item, but for April. So any other informational MAC member reports? If not, we can go to the subcommittee. So we've got a cleanup on February 17th.
Okay, we have a cleanup on February 17th that has been canceled due to rains. That would spare everybody trying to figure out whether it's happening or not. So we just decided to cancel it this time.
They're calling it atmospheric river conditions.
Due to that, so we thought we would.
Yeah.
But our next one will be March 16th. Hopefully we won't be rained out, because we were rained out, I think, the last 2. But fortunately,
good news, bad news.
well, yeah, we do have some diehards on the green team that did come. The last one, and still you know, went out in the rain
Apparently they should
and
have done.
cleaned up. But we did a little cleanup yesterday at the Ramon's adopted property at the entrance, the Caltrans property when you get off on San Pablo Road. There, it looks really nice now, so we did that, and we do interim ones, if especially for council. We'll go out, some members of the team will go out and pick an area and try to keep it clean. Because we want to keep a handle on this, we want to keep this going. The other thing I'd like to mention is that we just started our planning for our Earth Day event on April 20th. And we're very excited because we are partnering with the library here, and they are going to be sponsoring with the Friends of the Library a special program this time for Earth Day after our cleanup, which is 9:30 till noon, and we'll have food and things like that. But they're sponsoring a special program by Ashiba, who is a Ashiba. And he is a calypso, reggae, steel drum musician, artist, and he specializes in children's programs, but he was going to tailor it for our Earth Day for people of all ages. So we're excited, very excited to have him there, and hoping that it'll draw more participation to our Earth Day cleanup and then our celebration afterwards, and that will be from 12 to 1. And so we're excited about that, and we're going to be having a dumpster, and there's mixed feelings on whether we should have a 20 cubic yard or a 30 cubic yard, and that was depending on, and you wrote to me, Ron, that we have 16 dumpsters available for not just us, but other unincorporated areas too. Is it the dumpster, or is it the size of the dumpsters too? I mean, because if there's no difference between a 20 and 30, we'll take 30.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I believe the 20 counts for one, and the 30 and 40, they count for two. But that 16 is shared amongst like us, Montalban, North Richmond, so yeah.
So we'll take the 20.
Oh, it's going to be where it is against the building here in the parking lot. And we're going to be setting, we're not going to take up the parking spaces like we had in the past, because we're going to set up the registration and the equipment and everything, the locations in that little park over there. So there'll be adequate parking, but we do take up, and I think the 20 and 30 take up the same amount of space, but the 30 is just taller. So Terry, you think we should go for the 20? And
yeah, if it counts as two, 30 counts as two, I don't think we can use for it.
We already have 2 other dumpster days after.
we could use more, but
But also 20 should be.
yeah, I think the 20 should probably do it this time minute. And we're lucky because we also partner with SOS Richmond.
We need to talk because we were split between 2 Earth Days, so we'll coordinate.
Okay, but in the past, they have tended to have a trailer available and clean up the encampments at that time too.
Yeah.
And sometimes if we, you know, they'll take stuff straight to the dump. So if we have too much stuff, maybe they'll help us out that way again, like they have in the past. So I guess we'll be okay with the 20 this time, so that we can have more available in the future. I also wanted to bring up for Melinda, April 7th is going to be a first farmers market here in El Sobrante. And is that going to be on the Sobrante Avenue? They're going to close out that little
to the stop sign or stoplight.
Yeah.
So that little quarter block.
Yes, I'm excited. Yay.
April 7th.
April 7th is the first
Saturday in April.
So we'll have our own little thing, and then
oh yes, I read that.
yeah, so we're excited about that. And then just the last thing, I'll get back to you, but we're going to try to schedule a March subcommittee meeting in person where we can take on some other issues as well, aside from Earth Day and our regular cleanups and that kind of thing. So I think that's it. Oh, except for the record, I would like to say that Chris Conrad is my Valentine, and I love him very much.
And I want to see that in a minute. Always.
All right. Gary.
I was just wondering, have you contacted artistry since it's on the board?
Yes.
We did, you know what, I've included her on our meetings, and we do want them to be a partner with us.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry this meeting is gone this long, because I wanted to take advantage of their Valentine's special on their some things, but anyway, they close in 3 minutes, so it's not happening today, but anyway, yeah, we're hoping that they'll partner with us. I think they're gonna have their own 420 event, so I'm not sure how much we can count on them to participate.
I was just in there today and they told me that they have not a very big staff yet, and they're really trying to hire more people. So they might not have a lot of people available to help on 420, but they're very aware that.
Oh, okay, good. Good, I'm sure they'll help us.
Just tell me about
Promote it and things like that.
Everybody will be buying.
Yeah. So, the subcommittee, I would, subcommittee, that the questions are in progress on reestablishing the zoning and planning subcommittee.
I haven't heard anything, but I haven't contacted the chamber.
Would you be so kind to contact the chamber since you're part of this line? Thank you.
And if I could back onto the, like Mickey was saying, not to go into details, but we're making a lot of progress on the planners on Dam Road. And also we are we're working with the chamber to get more coordination between their events and ours. Talking in details of the two things.
So what I'll do is I'll contact the chamber just to see if they can nominate a couple of people.
Yeah, because you got 3 here, we're gonna do Mr. Herman and me.
All right, so perfect.
And as far as the planners, I offered my wife's services for succulents. But no one's contacted us about it. So if you want to come by and check out what she has, that she can get starts up.
Yeah, so I dropped the ball on that, so.
Okay.
Yeah, Chris is more.
Because she's more than willing to do a lot of starts.
So
thanks for the reminder.
Okay, so moving on to if no one has future, does anybody have any agenda items for upcoming meetings?
No, I wanted Peter to send it, she can have time to hear why he's.
Yeah, it's public time now, yeah.
Well, just hold on. So no agenda items?
No.
Okay, so we'll go to public comments.
I have it's brief. Sobrante is going to have we're in the process of planning a 5-month event. Tentatively scheduled for Sunday, June 9th from 1 to 5. And this is all tentative. It's tentatively being held at the Anza High School. I am on the planning committee for this event along with Melinda and about 4 or 5 others. So we're working on it. We hope it comes to fruition because I think our theme for the event is going to be it's about time. Because I have a lot of games.
So we've never had a
one. This will be the first one.
Okay, awesome.
So hopefully I might have more information at the next meeting, subsequent meetings, but we're hoping people there, like the supervisor's office, the ICP showed up, or representative like you, Hill, showed up at this event. So we're looking, we're in the process of getting it going. So in the planning stage. That's all.
I forgot to mention that we would like, if possible, when you order the dumpster for Earth Day, if we can get it delivered on Friday.
Yes, it's more than likely going to be on Friday. I'll have to follow up with you about that because I think they have some extra rules about like safety of the dumpster.
Be aware that when the last cleanup day, they filled a dumpster before we started.
Yeah, so I'll make this.
I know, but, yeah.
Okay, so can we,
Winter camping.
if there's no further, can we move to our next public comment?
Yes.
I believe there was somebody online, Mr. Simich.
Peter, you still there?
That's 2 years.
Okay, I think I'm on, yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually hadn't planned to speak, but I think what Rena was hoping I would talk about was we had gunfire. We both live towards the end of Clark Road, where the trailhead is, which is often a vector of trouble. We had a car burned there a while ago. There's typical partying that goes on, but
what main streets is that there?
Pardon me?
Clark Road.
Go ahead, sir.
So we recently had 2 instances with a day, I think, gap in between them of gunfire up there, like rapid gunfire. The first one was a 7mm gun, probably about 17 rounds shot off fairly quickly. And more disturbing than that was the second incident, which was a semi-automatic, probably 25, 30 rounds shot off. So I'm not sure what to say about the incident, but we have always wondered what we can do about the trailhead to make it safer. We've had discussions in the past about putting a gate up. The park doesn't like the idea because then they have to unlock the gate. Also, it block access to the school there. One thing I wanted to know is, do any of you know anything about the legality of putting cameras up there?
I don't think we're qualified to answer that question. The question I have for you is, when this gunfire was up, I'm assuming you called the appropriate authorities, because that section of Clark Road, I don't remember if it belongs to the city of Richmond or if it's unincorporated, but I'm assuming you did report the gunfire instances to the.
Yeah, we reported it. It's kind of a nightmare place because nobody claims ownership of that little stretch of road.
Yes, we've heard that. We've heard that before over the years.
Yeah, the upper part where the gate is Richmond. Below it is, I think, county, but we basically call Richmond. We get the best response out of them. And a couple of them came the first time, but they came out in force, and I have to really commend them. They came out very quickly in force the second time. There were at least probably 5 cars there. So they took it pretty seriously. I actually saw the people driving off, and it was odd because I'm assuming it was the people driving off. There was like a 2-minute gap after they shot the last time, and then they kind of leisurely drove back off the road. It was like not kind of what you would imagine. So, Rena, do you want to add anything to that?
No, just to let you confirm now, I think it's so risky. I'm on a home, it was on Linden Lane, and the semi-automatic, it sounded like it was in my backyard because there's only a street and some trees between our houses and the end of Clark Road. And it, like Peter said, it's been historically the place of choice for crime because it's dark and there aren't any houses right up there. Quite a few years ago, someone shot into a gas tank and to blow the car up. Same location, and the fire was shooting up 20 feet and the dispatchers didn't know who to send, and it was really frightening.
Is that because it was like it's a mixture of Sobrante and
No, I was told that Clark Road is Richmond and Linden Lane is unincorporated. And I can't, Is that what you understand as well?
Not exactly. My understanding is that it's part of Clark Road is El Sobrante and part of Clark Road is Richmond. And the way you can tell where one stops and where one begins is the pavement. Because there's actually because the city and the county maintain their pavement differently. And there's actually there's a little spot on that road. It's like as soon as the pavement changes, you're going from county to Richmond.
It's right at Yana Vista, Rena. That's where the change is.
So the people who showed up, the law enforcement that showed up was county law enforcement.
No, it was Richmond police. As I said, they're the ones who respond. We used to have nightmarish problems because they would argue that about jurisdiction. They'd say, call the sheriff, they'd say, call Richmond. Richmond seems to have really taken over servicing us. So
I have a suggestion for you. Have you had a chance to reach out to Sohail Ivana?
Well, yeah, she's our representative on the city council. Peter, I didn't reach out to her. I don't know if you did or anybody else did. But I thought she had that on her agenda too. So did you reach out to her?
No, I didn't.
No.
But that would be the thing, because that is, from what I understand, that's the city of Richmond, which therefore is her jurisdiction. So you would probably reach out to her as well. For the park district stuff, yeah, there's a gate there should be. But are you saying that to the best of your knowledge that these folks were firing their weapons on park district property, or was it on the street? Because I'm not quite understanding the connection to the park district and the gate.
We have conflicting reports. One person said they saw muzzle flashes up higher in the park, but we have no idea. We're not. It's probably not recommended practice to go out and observe where they're shooting.
I got that part. Yeah, I understood. It was just because you brought in the park district and the trailhead and the gate.
Because when we tried to find solutions before, it involves not only those parties but also the school district too, and nobody wants to take responsibility for it. It's also a weird issue with us because I believe. So Rena and I are both county, okay? So when we talk to Richmond representatives who are the ones who are the properties on mostly, probably, we're not exactly directly represented by them. So there's all this odd business going on like that.
Okay, that's fair. I get the Richmond El Sobrante thing because I have to call the police occasionally on my neighbor who is in Richmond, and I call the Richmond PD and they respond. So I get that.
So probably a good suggestion would just be to pursue further contact with Sohail, maybe get a meeting with her and just state how serious. I mean, because this is really serious. I'm disturbed to hear about it.
And maybe also just for drill, because there's this, just to loop in Supervisor Joy's office.
Yeah, I think that's
because it's so odd in terms of where it's happening and who has jurisdiction, it would be helpful to have.
It seems like that whole area is contiguous with this big wide open space that also has an entrance on La Colina.
Yeah.
So I have neighbors up on, they came and reported here regarding dumping.
Yeah.
So these were people in the El Sobrante area who have issues with dumping throughout their neighborhood. And part of the dumping problem was in this area that opens up from La Colina. So there's a gateway,
right.
And then there's a road that goes up the hill that sort of heads towards the Waldorf school. And then there are just a lot of people who seem to be engaged in nefarious activities in that whole open area.
Yeah, that's the road. That's an escape road that goes up to the property.
Sarless, I think.
Yeah, that's it.
What do you, I'm just looking.
So I think the road that goes up in that area is called Sarless.
Yeah, there's a house.
Yeah.
There's a house at the top. And
but it is a ways off the Clark Road. And had Peter, didn't we try to get a lamp post, a street lamp at that end, but we take it to the city
Well,
council?
that's a different place. He's talking about the road that goes up to the house that is the very top of the
Oh,
hill.
yes, I know that. I switched back to Clark
Uh-huh.
because we're getting these, you know.
So I'm just wondering if it's kind of the same root of the problem. That
It's-
whole wide open area.
Kind of, they're fairly distant from each other, so they're not.
They're not.
But we have, of course, the same problems as them. We have a lot of dumping there and stuff.
So it seems like this is probably something that requires both Sohaila Bana's attention as well as, you know, John Joyce. And it just looks like managing that whole area is something that both the city and county need to be involved with. So I'd be happy to reach out to.
So we actually received the city email earlier this week on the same basis. So it's
okay. Well, I'll reiterate it and just mention we had people come present at our meeting about this, so it is a serious thing.
Yeah, and
I'll send an email to Sohaila as well.
Thank you.
And as Tom said, Park District to be involved because it's possible that these folks are accessing the land and shooting on the Park District. I'm sure they would want to be aware that people are using their property to shoot their guns. So that may be the reason why the gate, and if it needs to be locked, it needs to be locked, and if they need to do it, they need to do it. So just a thought.
Yeah. Go ahead.
My
as well.
Part of the problem is nobody really knows where they shoot off a semi-automatic, but I can tell you from the sound, it wasn't very far from my house and other residents on the street. And it was probably at the very end of Clark Road because they need a fast getaway. They know people are gonna call the police.
Yeah.
So for them to be up on the parkland, you know, hundreds of yards away, it's not likely because you can't get your car up there. There's gates.
This is true, but if they are, you know, near that land, or they might be odd enough to go up there and shoot up there because it's.
Yeah,
that's why the partners, but I get it with the neighborhood.
Yeah, I'm concerned about that they're shooting so close that bullets could come to my bedroom.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
a little scary.
Any chance get your name so I can refer to it whenever it's.
Rena Baker with an I. And
R-I-N-A.
R-I-N-A, and Peter is my neighbor, which is 2 houses down. Okay. And we have other neighbors that we're representing.
I'll just mention that you both were present at our meeting.
Great, thank you.
Can I say just two more things? One is that somebody did say that the first incident that happened there was not a car involved, that people were actually walking. I can't verify that because I'm not the person who said it. So they might be local people. The other thing, just for you guys on the MAC information, is Sue Bedreau on the MAC is someone who also lives right there. So she can tell you
my neighbor.
Great detail.
Yeah, so
she would be here talking about it. She's out of the country.
Yeah.
And she asked us to participate tonight because it was very concerning to her. She is right next door to me. It's very dangerous and it's very frightening.
And we completely sympathize and so are there, go ahead.
Yeah, two of them are real quick, and I'll probably, I'm just asking Ryan to let us know about it. The first is I gave you that zoning information that was published in the East Bay Times, and so hopefully you can explain to me what that's all about and how it affects us in El Sobrante. The second thing is that I got something in an email about recruiting a new MAC member.
Yes.
And so so maybe we can get a little more information about that.
Emily Whalen is.
Okay, and the third thing is that I remember a while ago that we had some discussions about somebody who wanted to have a smoker at a restaurant and talking about how to mitigate the smoke. Well, subsequent to that, now there's a guy who has a smoker parked on Dam Road, and I don't know what's being done to mitigate, but to me, it's like freaky when I go outside and I smell smoke because, you know, we're all talking about the fire district.
This is walking outside. Guy that does the chickens on the side of the road.
Yeah, sometimes he has a canopy and sometimes he doesn't. So, you know, I don't know how much. if we're concerned.
I actually bought it from him.
And I have nothing against the guy or anybody against him said this, or we should block, but I'm just wondering if there are rules about that, because whenever I walk outside, he's really close to our house a lot of time. And so it's like almost every day I go, holy smoke, literally, holy smoke, it was fire or something. And so, yeah, I just like to know what can be done about that.
Where on Dam Road is
Well, he moves around, but basically it's finalized.
Yeah, we received a good number of emails and calls, and so I believe this is the third time Contra Costa Health has come out to cite this person, and so according as of I think Monday or Tuesday of this week, they're going to be going out I think a third or fourth time to essentially, you know.
Not to wish the guy any ill, but it's just.
Yeah.
Everybody didn't get sick.
Check it out.
We're on it and he's sending people out, but they just show right back up. So.
And that,
You didn't like that you didn't.
that's the end of my comment.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, Tommy from SOS. I just wanted to follow up on O'Neill's presentation last month. Thank you for hosting him. He loves everybody here. He said that several folks were really interested in volunteering and supporting SOS. And I have a particular opportunity I wanted to mention. I brought my cards. I didn't write the opportunity out, but I brought my cards if you're interested. We're going to start, I think he mentioned the Warm Hand Wellness Center. And we were trying to get a spot in Richmond, but it's probably going to start at our yard in Richmond. And we would love to do it in El Sobrante. So I guess the first thing is, if you know any churches or spaces where we could do once a week out here, wouldn't be very many people, maybe 20 people. And the purpose is to make it easier for services to come to people who are unhoused, whether it's CORE or if we can get healthcare for the homeless out or other groups. But we're also going to offer programming. So our workforce clinic, which is job readiness. And we're also going to offer some classes. And here's the ask. If any of you would be interested in leading a class, I'm going to create a curricula with, you know, leader notes and to how to create a resume, how to write a cover letter, and some other things. So it'll be all set to go for 50 minutes, an hour. Or if you have something that you would like to offer, we're interested in wellness and helping people get ready for jobs. And, you know, it's open. So if you're interested, we can definitely use help. Right now it'll be in Richmond. We hope to have it in some other locations.
Thank you. It's a great project.
Thank you.
Toby, I wanted to tell you that the United Methodist Church on Argyle might be the best church we would look into.
I saw it, yeah, I've been thinking about.
It's Emily, I forgot her last name, Reverend, but Community First already does their Wednesday food giveaway there.
Oh, yeah.
And they're very, very community.
Thank you.
Unless there's anybody else.
I did have one real fast question. Have you guys, can you say anything about progress in terms of the Clark Road, Larry Chang issue with improving that road?
Yes, that was a part of the county update at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay, I missed that, sorry.
We did meet with Larry Chang and our public works team. And so we have we're scheduling an additional meeting with the Parks District and the school.
Okay, cool. So things are going forward. Thank you.
Yes.
So I'd like to move that we adjourn.
Okay.
Sounds like fun.